Connecticut lawmakers have debated paid sick leave on and off for years now, not able to agree on the benefits or the costs. But Connecticut Working Families has been pushing the issue and say this year they have new support from the new governor. Here to lay out his view on why paid sick leave should be a priority is John Green. He's executive director of Connecticut Working Families. Also joining us is Pat Scully of the Hanging Chad, a regular here on The Real Story. Thanks, Pat, for being here. Thanks, John.
Thanks
so, John, tell me why it is that this is coming up again and why you all feel this year you have renewed support.
Right. Well, look, for starters, I think something like paid sick leave is a benefit that, many of us, you or I, probably take for granted. If we're ill or we need to bring a child to the doctor, we're not going to be penalized by our employer. But there are hundreds of thousands of employees in our state who do not receive a single paid sick day per year. And for those employees, bringing a child to the doctor could mean falling behind on their mortgage. Catching the flu and being out for a week could cost them their job. And especially in these tough times, we want to make sure that no employees are forced to choose between their health and being able to protect their income and hold on to their job. So that's, I think, why it's important.
What sorts of data do you have that suggests that is a real reality for Connecticut workers?
Right. Well, there are, like I said, several 100,000 employees in the state who don't have any paid sick leave. And what's especially alarming is that many of those employees work in the very industries where we would least want to see people coming to work sick. Almost 4 out of 5 employees in the restaurant industry do not receive a single paid sick day. Many home health care workers and school bus drivers do not receive paid sick days. So no one thinks it makes sense to have people taking care of sick and elderly folks coming to work with a contagious illness. Nobody wants the person who's preparing their food in the kitchen to be coming to work when they have something that could be spread. And so we know it's not only about protecting those employees and providing that economic security. It's a real public health issue that has to be addressed.
John, I was checking out in anticipation of talking to you your website this week, and your priorities in this order were jobs and then paid sick leave. Now, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, as well as many other businesses across the state, would say that those two things are in conflict, that if businesses, especially small businesses, have to provide, if it's mandatory paid sick leave, that they're not going to be able to employ the same number of people that they do now, and it could result in job loss. How would you answer that?
Well, look, for starters, one thing I do want to clarify, because there is a fair amount of misinformation or confusion about some parts of the bill. It does not apply to small businesses. In the previous versions of the legislation, it starts at 50 or more employees. So those mom and pop shops aren't really covered by this legislation. Having said that, we need to remember that many, many employers in our state already do provide paid sick leave benefits for their employees. And they do that not only because it's just the right thing to do, they do it because it's smart business. And employers have found and have told us that by providing paid sick leave to their employees, they have been able to improve employee morale and productivity. They've been able to cut down dramatically on turnover costs. And any employer will tell you that the cost of continually replacing and retraining new employees can be a real drain on the bottom line. At the end of the day, what this is really about is protecting public health, but the cost for employers is extremely minimal. And when we talk about creating jobs and improving the economy here, we need to look at things like seriously addressing runaway health care costs. We need to look at energy costs and building the kind of transportation infrastructure that will encourage employers to expand in our state. When it comes to something like paid sick days, the benefit of making sure that employees in our state can get timely medical care for their illnesses, that we can reduce the spread of illnesses to the public as well as in the workplace, those benefits by far outweigh the costs.
But when you say that, and it sounds so sensible, and it sounds like, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, why is it that no other state in the country has paid sick leave then?
Well, I think that over the past several decades, we have seen an economy that squeezes more and more out of employees. We have more two-income families and more folks working more than one job just to get by. I do think at this point in time, as we come out of a recession, our legislators are being mindful that we have to make sure that economy, the economic recovery, is really spread and shared among everyone. Mm-hmm. There are municipalities that have passed paid sick leave requirements, and I will say they have found job growth remains strong in those places when they have these policies in place. And even many of the business associations have come around and said, this really turned out to be a pretty good thing.
As a matter of, in a practical sense, as a legislative issue, this came up when I was the communications director for the Senate Democrats. I was in the caucus room when this was hotly debated, right. And it does not have universal support among the Democrats, which is sort of your spot. Are you confident that both the House and the Senate can pass it? And we know that you have a new ally in the governor's office in Dan Malloy, who, by the way, you cross-endorsed. Mm-hmm. He won with 49.5% of the vote. Who knows if that had made the difference? But are you confident you can pass both chambers before it gets to the governor?
I think it's likely to pass both chambers. I mean, we're cautiously optimistic. We do have support from some Republicans in the state Senate that you may recall. So there is bipartisan support in the state Senate. Ultimately, we all know this is going to be hotly contested. Mm-hmm. And the people who benefit from this policy, the part-time waitress who's serving up the Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's for $4 an hour and tips, those folks can't afford to hire scores of lobbyists to be at the state capitol every day, and they can't afford to put ads on television the way, folks at McDonald's or Walmart probably can do. So for sure there's going to be a serious debate about that. But I think at the end of the day, there's going to be support for doing what's right, even if it means upsetting a few of those lobbyists.
You talked about how the real cost for businesses is, in your opinion, minimal.
Yeah.
What is it? I mean, what?
So there's actually data about this, and it's one of the things that I think is important to get out there. When you really crunch the numbers, and you can take out your calculator and do it, or we'll provide you the research later, but it comes out to being about 0.2% of the operating cost of a business. So, for example, 0.2%, which is, it is nothing, but it is a lot less than the rising cost of healthcare or the rising cost of energy. Think about it in these terms. If a company like Subway Sandwich was to adjust prices accordingly, it would mean that $5 footlong at Subway Sandwich costs $5.01. So I, for one, would gladly pay a penny for the security that, that really is oil and vinegar on my salad.
Right. All right, well, we wish you good luck. We know it is going to be a hot issue, and we're interested in seeing how it goes and the success that you have.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, John. Ahead, most of us have heard about BPA in, for instance, plastic water bottles, but did you know that some say it's also present in some other things that you handle every single day?